Putin may decide to take a page from Erdogan's playbook. Russia has been shaken by the failed Prigozhin putsch, in which the Wagner Group's 25,000 troops were supposedly stopped short of Moscow. No one knows what this means for Russia's future, or even for the immediate protagonists. Winston Churchill's famous analogy of Kremlin politics to a bulldog fight under a rug has never been more apt. It seemed so prescient that an outsider hearing the growling would know who won when he saw the bones fly out from underfoot. There had never been a crisis like it during Putin's presidency. However, the failed coup attempt against Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in 2016 serves as a useful analogy. As with the prior attempt, urban fighting and a struggle for control of strategic cities broke out quickly. The reactions of Putin and Erdogan, however, were very different. The latter swiftly released a video urging Turks to resist the coup, and his loyal security forces refused to disband. Approximately 265 lives were lost. Erdogan quickly named his purported opponents, proving he was ready to go to battle to maintain his control over the use of force. In his late reply on June 24, delivered in the morning, Putin made no reference to Prigozhin. Erdogan, on the other hand, made it clear that he blamed the group led by US-based cleric Fethullah Gulen for the coup attempt against him, despite the fact that Gulen had once been a close ally of Erdogan's, much like Prigozhin had been of Putin's. Erdogan has used it to stay in power to this day by legitimizing a massive crackdown and further undermining democratic norms in Turkey. Russia's democratic opposition has been largely wiped out or imprisoned by Putin for quite some time, and those who have survived have fled abroad in the past year, but his weak initial response is a bad sign for the system he has established. Putin's promise of stability and prosperity for Russia after the tumult of the 1990s is quickly evaporating as Prigozhin's assassination shows. Muscovites and St. Petersburgers panicked at Prigozhin's threatened march, but the war against Ukraine had failed to do so. Despite the wider horrors of the conflict, Muscovites and St. Petersburgers have been largely insulated from its effects, with the exception of a small number of symbolic drone attacks. Amazingly, it appears that Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko mediated between the two sides to alleviate their concerns, rather than Putin or the Russian security services with which he is so closely associated taking decisive action. It has not been revealed why Prigozhin decided to resign. After all, he had grown increasingly defiant in the face of Putin's rule. The Wagner chief dismissed Russia's casus belli for the full-scale invasion of Ukraine on June 23 and admitted that Kremlin claims that enemy forces threatened genocide against Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine were false and poor propaganda. Despite his belief that the war was still worthwhile, he accused Sergei Shoigu, Ukraine's Minister of Defense, and the Slovaki oligarchs of orchestrating it in order to plunder Ukraine's national wealth, just as they had in occupied Donetsk and Luhansk since 2014. Prigozhin appears to be heading for Belarus itself, despite the fact that Minsk and Prigozhin's forces have a contentious history. As he left Rostov, the Wagner boss was caught on camera beaming and seemingly celebrating. His publicist has promised additional comments at a later date. Putin's weak response, like his failed invasion of Ukraine, has damaged his reputation for strength at home in Russia.